S&P 500 and NASDAQ all down more than 5% this month. The S&P is tracking for its worst month since September 2022. The NASDAQ also staring down its worst month since December 2022. But the president isn't backing down.
Donald Trump is doubling down on his ridiculous, painful, and unnecessary trade war ahead of tomorrow's so-called Liberation Day. And as a consequence, the stock market is tanking. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, as we've been discussing, Donald Trump's polling with respect to the economy is in a nosedive, and so too is the stock market. Again, as a direct consequence, a straight line from the stock market's current performance to Donald Trump's wildly inconsistent tariff policy. Yep, we're going to have tariffs. Okay, no, we're not going to have tariffs. Okay, we're going to have 25% tariffs on all goods. Okay, we're going to make exceptions on these particular industries, but only for 2 months, and then we're going to return, and now we're going to open up tariffs. We're going to double this tariff on this particular country. It's been all over the place, and the private sector wants consistency. They just do. They value it more than anything else, and Trump is not providing it. And as even Fox is reporting, this is not good news. We're going to play one more clip, and then we're going to get into what Trump has said in the past 24 hours about the incoming reciprocal tariff schedule that, at the time of recording, is coming tomorrow. Or no, excuse me, 2 days from now, April 2nd.
Where are we now? Right from the get-go, the Dow is off a significant amount, 308 points. In percentage terms, that is 0.7%. The Dow 30 dominated by the red. That means more selling than buying. The S&P 500 opening with a loss of about 50-odd points. That's exactly 1%. The NASDAQ composite, that's down sharply, 275 to the downside, 1.5%. My guess is that big tech will be down across the board. I'm right, apart from Apple, it just opened up. Only down 3 cents, that's nothing for Apple. But Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon are all down. Look at Microsoft at $3.70 per share. Ouch. We're going to take a look at...
So, not good. Not good, again. And as a direct consequence of what Donald Trump is doing. As Brian Sullivan, CNBC reporter, notes, tech stock sell-off now worst since 2022. S&P drop heading towards the top 4 of the last 12 months. Stay focused. So let's dive into this. As CNN reports, Wall Street is fed up with Trump's tariffs. Stocks are off to their worst start in a year since 2020. As Wall Street heads into a new quarter, a flurry of Donald Trump's tariffs are set to go into effect. That has traders on edge and has helped put the U.S. stocks in their worst first quarter slump in years. Wall Street has been rocked with volatility this year as Trump's tariff proposals have kept investors in a cloud of uncertainty. The benchmark S&P 500 index is down almost 6% for the year, its worst start since 2020. U.S. stocks were lower Monday. So we're going to dive more into this article, but as I said, Donald Trump has doubled down on this. He was on Air Force One yesterday taking questions from reporters about this, so we got to play these clips. We got to get what we're being told by Donald Trump, the current president of the United States, because he's directly responsible for this cloud of volatility and uncertainty, which is going to destroy and devastate people's 401ks.
On the tariffs that you're planning, so you're expecting to hit something like 10 to 15 countries, is that right?
No.
All of the countries across the board?
Not 10. I don't know who told you 10 or 15 countries.
We heard that. So we heard that you were going to aim for the 15%.
But you didn't hear it from me.
Okay, so how many countries will be in that initial tranche?
You'd start with all countries, so let's see what happens. There are many countries.
On the Russian?
I haven't heard a rumor about 15 countries, 10 or 15.
So you're starting with all countries?
Well, essentially, all of the countries that we're talking about. I wouldn't be talking about all countries. It's not a cutoff. And if you look at the history and you look at what's happened to us, you go to certain places, go to Asia, and you take a look at every single country in Asia, what they've done to the United States in trade. And by the way, in military in a certain way. You look at, take a look at trade with Asia, and I wouldn't say anybody is treated as fairly or nicely, but we are going to treat them, we're going to be much more generous to them in terms of heart. We're going to be much more generous.
You have Trump's dumbass Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick lurking in the back like a friggin' creeper. I mean, just... Again, madness. We're going to be totally generous as we devastate these countries' economies and trigger a potentially costly trade war for Americans as American consumers have to pay the price. And I will remind you that Trump recently told NBC News that he couldn't care less. He could not care less if prices increase on American consumers. Again, we don't even have to interpret with this guy. Like, we don't have to read between the lines. We don't have to read the tea leaves. We don't have to like engage in, psychoanalysis. He's just telling us outright, like, he doesn't care. And sadly, it seems that so many Americans don't care that he doesn't care. It's shocking. Here's some other clips.
We were respected as a country again, and we're strongly respected. And people are amazed. I was with some very important people today, and they said that they've never seen a turnaround of a country as fast as this.
I'm convinced he was talking to himself in a mirror. Who is telling you, who's respecting you more now than America was respected under President Biden? You've alienated two of our three biggest trading partners, Canada and Mexico. The new Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has said the special relationship is over. It's stunning shit. It's maddening. There's no evidence whatsoever that Donald Trump's disastrous, inconsistent tariff policies are resulting in more respect from the countries he's potentially devastating with them, in addition to ours.
Now, is that something that you're worried about, given the impact of your efforts to readjust the economy?
I haven't heard that term in years. No, I don't know anything about it. This country is going to be more successful than it ever was.
So that was a reference to stagflation, the likelihood of which has increased as a consequence of Donald Trump's policies. That's when you have inflation but low economic growth as well, which is it's a double whammy. We haven't seen stagflation in a serious sense since the days of President Jimmy Carter. And again, I'm not saying that it's more likely than not, but the fact that the likelihood is increasing steadily as a consequence of Trump's policies, that's not good. That's not good, and people need to be covering it relentlessly.
We have our own lumber. We have our own energy. We don't need energy from Canada. We don't need lumber from Canada. We don't need anything from Canada. We don't need cars from Canada, as an example. So we are I think we're going to have, I call it the golden age of America. I believe this will be the golden age of America.
In that you're going to have to, I don't know, you better have gold on you to be able to afford the shit that Donald Trump is going to do to this economy. I mean, it's stunning stuff. Getting back to the CNN report there. I mean, again, just this idea that we can do everything here. Again, that's a notion called autarchy, right? This idea that, well, a sufficiently independent nation can produce all of its goods, manufacture all of its components, can just sustain itself. To have a totally isolationist economy, it's just bullshit. It's not true. There's a thing called competitive advantage, or comparative advantage, where other nations are better at doing various things because of natural resources, because of, years of like sustained competence in a particular field, be it like engineering or semiconductor manufacturing or things like that. Now, obviously, some industries like semiconductor chips, we should have a robust industry here if for no other reason than national security purposes, so we're not too dependent on foreign nations in the midst of a crisis, be it military crisis or COVID, for example, which is why we saw inflation as a consequence of COVID, because it was difficult to get those damn semiconductor chips, which we needed for our vehicles, for medical equipment, for military equipment. I get it. That's why President Biden bent over backwards to try to promote internal investment into the domestic semiconductor manufacturing industry here in the United States. That makes sense. But sweeping tariffs in every industry for like every nation, like, what are you doing, man? And this idea that we can do it all, it's bullshit. It's just not true. I digress. The Dow was down by 50 points, or 0.1%, pulling back from opening lower by about 300 points. The S&P 500 was lower by 0.8%, and the NASDAQ composite slid 1.8%, which we got a lot of these stats from the first clips we played in this video. Stocks around the globe were lower Monday ahead of Trump's so-called Liberation Day this Wednesday, when reciprocal tariffs, in addition to others, are set to go into effect. Economists anticipate the sweeping tariffs could spur inflation and drag on economic growth, not increase it, which again, combine these two things, stagflation. The full extent of Trump's tariffs is yet to be seen, and the lack of clarity has weighed on Wall Street. Analysts at Goldman Sachs on Sunday lowered their year-end target for the S&P 500 to 5,900 from 6,200. That comes after analysts at the bank earlier this month lowered their target to 6,200 from 6,500. Analysts at Barclays last week lowered their year-end target for the S&P 500 to 5,900 from 6,600. Wall Street has been revising down its forecasts and heightened concerns about the impact of Trump's tariffs on the U.S. economy. The economy faces a growing risk of recession as tariffs could hinder growth, increase unemployment, and contribute to inflation, according to Goldman Sachs. The bank on Sunday says it sees a 35% chance, 35% chance of a recession in the next 12 months, up from 20% previously. So yeah, not good. And again, we don't have to infer, we don't have to interpret, we don't have to maybe. No. We don't have to speculate. It's a direct line, straight line. Donald Trump's stated ridiculous, inconsistent, disastrous policy to the economic pain that Americans are already feeling with respect to the market and could potentially feel in terms of a recession and unemployment skyrocketing were these to go into effect, which we just don't know. Trump could put them into effect exactly as he says on April 2nd and then change his damn mind on April 3rd, as he has done before time and time again, backing down time and time again for token concessions, if at all. We just don't know. And that's not a good thing. It's not a good place to be in. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.